Something I used to do a lot, and people who've been around me for a while will know this. So at this time, I'm teaching life is like a dream, everything exists in consciousness. We're going back a few years now. Things I don't believe at all now. How would I introduce people to that experience? And I did. I introduced people to that experience. Would be to shake them up a bit first, in a nice way. So I get them to, I'd explain that physics had come along, and as it has, and gone, hey, you know this solid matter? It's 99.999999999999999999999 13 nines. Empty space. And everything that's like blows your mind, doesn't it? What? Really? But the thing I would want to move on to was, can you get that? And what I meant by that was, in my language I use now, can you psi-sense that? Which meant try imagining that is true and see what happens. So go on. Try imagining that is true. That on another level of what this reality is, this spectrum of emergence, on another level, that feeling of solidity of your bum on the chair, it's all empty space. And particles too small for you to possibly register. And what I think is that you can do that. And when you do, it's quite exciting, isn't it? It's like, whoa, okay. And you've moved from just going, interesting idea, to, oh, fuck, right, that's a description of reality we're dealing with here. My favorite one at the moment is to do that with this idea again from quantum physics, that what we think of as empty space is actually pulsating with creativity of particles and antiparticles coming into existence and cancelling each other out. So once you've got down to, oh, on another level, this solidity is empty, you can go, and that emptiness is effervescent with creativity. So now you're in the same moment that you were in before. But if you enter, if you imagine it and you can step into it, your experience will change. Now that's just with scientific ideas, because they can do it. Here's the thing. Just because you can experience it doesn't make it true. It just means it's one way in which you can experience it. So at that time, I was teaching everything exists in consciousness. Life is like a dream. How would I get people there? Well, what gets called pointing out exercises or guided meditation. Well, what are those actually? They're really guided ways of imagining. Imagine it like this. Imagine it like that. Can you see it this way? And, and why this matters is because there's a whole sleight of hand, as if you're not doing that. As if literally all you're doing is going, look over there, see? And you're not. You're going, look over there with these ideas, see? This is my whole critique with Rupert Spira, when I realized that's what I've been doing all these years, that I was setting people up to see it in a certain way. And so they did. And when they did, they experienced it. And it was fucking mind-blowing. Because it's possible to experience life that way. Didn't mean it was true. Just meant that's one of the ways you can experience it. That's what I was trying to say to Rupert. He couldn't see it. It wasn't the way of experiencing it. It wasn't non-ideational. It was heavily ideational. In fact, he had put the ideas in people's heads like I did for them to have it. So this seems important. It's like, if I go back to my primary, I could say this about all my experiences, because it's true of all experiences, all of them. But if I think about, say, because I'm talking about non-duality, if I think about my two big non-dual experiences, the way that I have thought about them when I've been what you might say is epistemologically naive, in other words, not really understanding or even thinking about, how do I know any of this? How am I experiencing any of this? My story was at that time, these experiences just happened and I saw the way reality is. And they were great. The reality, actually, that's not true. So my first, I've had, as you know, I've had spiritual experiences since I was 12. Well, my 12-year-old experience, it was spontaneous, and it happened with me just sitting in a field, and it did. But I'd been going to church. I've been sitting in this old building and listening to people reading out these amazing stories from the Gnostic tradition without even knowing what they are. And I've been told that God is love, and I kind of got that. And then what do you know? I'm sitting in a field and suddenly God is love and there's God. And it's amazing. Because that is a way you can experience reality. Doesn't mean it's true. In this case, I think it is true, but we'll talk about how you can tell later. We'll get onto that. But when I experienced the non-dual thing, the first experience, which I wrote about in one of the books, I've written about all of these. I think you can read about them in How Long Is Now, I think, which is kind of autobiographical a bit, out of date, but autobiographical, is I was literally reading Sri Nisargadatta Maharaj, who was the most influential non-dual teacher on me. And I'd read him and 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 kind of was trying to get it and was trying to get it. And then one day, in an amazing, strange thing in my recording studio of repeating this line, "You are not a person," fuck me, I wasn't a person. There it was. I was not a person. I was this space, and there was Tim doing all of this stuff. But I wasn't Tim. And it was, whoa, my God, what's that? But it happened because I'd been imagining it that way, and then it was. And there was a shift between, no, I'm imagining it, no, I'm imagining it, no, whoa, it's actually like this. And that was full on. Same thing happened with Ramesh Balsekar when I saw him. I was sitting with Ramesh Balsekar. He was saying there's no doer, it's all just happening. And then what do you know? A few hours later, I'm walking through Mumbai and bang, there is no doer and it is all just happening. And it blows my mind. Think about it, one of the things I've noticed is with the retreats. I've done gazing, big gazing events, 100 people in an evening, and they've been great. But nowhere near as good as the ones I do at the end of the retreats. Why? Because by the time you do them, when we've been together and we've had all this preparation, you're ready to ideate it in such a deep way that you experience the deep state that I'm interested in sharing. When I was discussing this earlier in the week with Jessica, who's here, and she mentioned, damn it, I've forgotten his name now. The guy who does On Having No Head, Douglas Harding on Having No Head, who I met when he was old and spent some time with. Very nice man. But he has these amazing techniques, like, you point at yourself and you just see your finger and it's going, who's looking? And it can lead to a real experience. But it can only lead to a real experience if he set you up to ideate it in a certain way. If you went out into if it was just do this, if it was really just point it out, everyone will see. You went out into the town and just went, hey, look, just do that. Who's looking? People will go, well, I am. What? Nothing would be happening. No one would be going, oh my God. None of that would happen. But if you've set it up, it will happen. Now, so what I'm saying here is, On the epistemological side, this is how it works. And then we ideate in that way. Just because you ideate in that way doesn't mean it's the only way to ideate, and doesn't mean it's true. So when we're reflecting, we need to go back to those things and go, like I did with my non-dual experiences, and go, was that right? Is this all happening in, consciousness? And the thing that did that for me was when I realized that I'd set myself up for that, or so I'd been set up for that. And I hadn't noticed. I hadn't noticed that I'd smuggled the very answer I wanted into the question, does all this exist in consciousness? That's a different subject. We'll leave that. Doesn't mean it's true, but doesn't mean it's false either. I'm not poo-pooing these things. And you can start seeing how through history we have been ideating it in these ways, imagining it in new ways, and then whoa. So then the importance becomes also to be able to reflect on it. And that's what I called earlier theorizing. I don't know if that's the right word. I'm going to use it for now. Which is to be able to see, is this idea trustworthy? And the fact that you're experiencing it a certain way is not enough. Now, how do you test out an idea whether it's true? Well, it has to be experiential. It has eventually. That's what science is really. That's what leads to this idea called empiricism. It means experience. You've got to test it on experience. Sooner or later, it must be tested on experience. But the paradox is, how you experience is also going to be governed by how you're ideating. So it's not as simple as that. Just because I had a big experience that I was not a person under the influence of Sri Nisargadatta did not mean that I was not a person. Turns out I was. And that's the same with those prejudices that we find in ourselves. And I have thought, I do think sometimes, especially because I'm in my 60s, what a shame it is. It's like I'm here going, oh, I was wrong, all those great books I wrote. And they're great books. Lucid Living is a great book. It just wish it wasn't wrong. But it is. But it's a brilliant book. I mean, it's just brilliant in terms of pointing out that, and in a nice way too, because it's not denying the self, but it's just still wrong. And so it's really like heartbreaking, really. And not just that, I have changed my views on some big things personally, politically, and massive changes over the last just few years. Astonished myself. But I hope that actually, this is my saving grace with it, it feels like, but maybe that's a good thing. Maybe having someone come out and going, hey, look, I've been wrong, allows everyone to go, oh, okay, well, maybe I'm wrong. And that's what we need, that ability to reflect. And maybe that'll be more of a gift than if I went, well, I've always said, which always seems dumb to me whenever I hear politicians go that.